So just to build on what we've already explored, we're going to hone in on Forest School that does have an agreed definition and 6 principles behind it. So we're just going to unpick that, and then we'll kind of touch on the reflections from yesterday as well. So the definition of Forest School is this. Forest School is an inspirational process that offers all learners regular opportunities to achieve and develop confidence and self-esteem through hands-on learning experiences in a woodland or natural environment with trees. And Forest School is a specialised learning approach that sits within and complements the wider context of outdoor and woodland education. A bit of a mouthful. So I suppose this latter sentence here is kind of the tree that we've just been exploring of outdoor learning. It's recognising that it's just one leaf of the bigger picture of outdoor learning. Then in terms of the definition, it's a process. So Forest School, it's a process. It changes over time. How Forest School looks at the beginning of a programme looks very different to how it looks, 6 months in, a year in. It's a changing, evolving thing. It's for everyone. It's for all learners. On the video, they kind of mentioned it's not just for little children, although it has come from Scandinavian early years practice, so it particularly kind of dovetails with the early years foundation stage, so it fits in there. And within the UK, probably there is still the majority of forest schools are run with younger children. However, it is for all ages, all backgrounds. It's used in all sorts of different ways. I was chatting to a practitioner up in Scotland who uses Forest School with the elderly with dementia. So it can be used and applied to all sorts of different contexts, from tiny little babies all the way through to elders. It's very, very usable in different ways. And it's saying here, it's particularly looking at those emotional aspects of a person, such as confidence and self-esteem. It's, it's hands-on. We're doing stuff out there, and it's in a woodland or a natural environment with trees. There is like debate about how many trees do you need for it to kind of count in terms of Forest School. My personal opinion on this is that it's the ethos of how you do things that makes it Forest School, perhaps more so than the environment that you're in. Now, don't get me wrong, woodland is ideal. Woodland, there's something very special about woodland. If you can get to a woodland, then that is, great. But if you can't, then I believe that Forest School can still be done in other sort of outdoor spaces, other environments. But generally, like the more natural, the better. But there are people doing very successful Forest School, in the corner of their school grounds. You have to be a bit more creative as a practitioner, because you might have to import materials and bring stuff in if it's not there, whereas you just go into a woods and there's loads of stuff just lying around. So, but it can be done in other natural environments. So that's the definition. But again, it's a bit difficult necessarily to sort of grab onto it. So there are 6 principles. So for something to be Forest School, as opposed to another type of outdoor learning, it has to have all 6 of these principles. So the first one is time. Forest School is long-term. It's a long-term process. So ideally, the same group will be going out to the same space on a weekly basis for a year, ideally. It doesn't always happen like that, but that's something to aim for. So, because it takes time to build connection. It takes time to build relationships. So that long-term repetitive process means that you start to grow a sense of security. You become safe and comfortable in the environment. You start to notice different things within the environment. As the seasons change, all sorts of different things are there to discover. And also, because Forest School is based on self-esteem, you can't just meet someone once and have an effect on their self-esteem. It doesn't work like that. You have to build a trusting relationship to be able to do that, and that takes time. And so that that's the core of what we do at Forest School. And so as Forest School leaders or assistants, we can only do the work that we're trying to do if we've got a trusting relationship. You can't affect a person's self-esteem unless they trust you fundamentally. So that takes time. And it also takes time to get to know people and things as well. So time is core. Then space, time, space, a natural space. So as I kind of said, a woodland is perfect if you can get to woodland, but if you can't, work with what you've got, because in my opinion, something is better than nothing. And so like working with the ethos in other environments are possible. You know, you may have heard like things like beach school as well, like using the beach or the coastal environments. So that's something that has been developed by particular training companies, but fundamentally it's based in forest school ethos. It's just using a different environment. So you can do forest school on the beach, you can do forest school in a heathland, you can do forest school on a grassland. It's the ethos that makes it that. Of course, those training courses might give you more information about those particular environments, whereas forest school focuses on the woodland environment. But in terms of the actual pedagogy, the way of working with people, it's the same. And so there's, in this principle, the idea of we're supporting the development of a relationship between the learner and the natural world. So the way I understand this is that we're looking to do nature connection rather than just nature contact as well. So I kind of mentioned earlier that nature contact and nature connection are slightly different things. But this idea of a relationship, relationships are reciprocal, aren't they? And they are, long-term usually. So there is something a bit deeper than just going into a space and being there for a bit. You're actually nurturing that connection. Then the next one is about the learners, and particularly about the learners at play. So we've already kind of mentioned play a little bit so far today, but we will unpick this deeper tomorrow. But Forest School is fundamentally a play-based approach. It's a learner-centred approach. We're following the interests and the dispositions of the individuals that we're working with. So that means no two Forest School programs are ever the same. They're all different. So I could be running Forest School in the same site, but with a different group of learners, and they'll be different because the people are different. So I can't predict in the long term where people are going to go with things. So you can't sit down and do like long-term planning and go like week 1 we're going to do tree spirits, week 2 we're going to play with leaves, week 3 we're going to get the fire going. You can't do that because I don't know where the learners are going to take things. And of course everybody's different and will want to do different things as well. So once you get going with a Forest School programme, you'll find that you'll have multiple things happening all at the same time. It's different to like curriculum-based outdoor learning. You might have your objective to discover the mini beasts in your woodland, and you go out with your mini beasting kit and equipment. You might play some games like we did this morning, get your footprint card out, see if you can find some mini beasts in the leaf litter. You might do something like that, and everybody's doing the same thing. At Forest School, that's not the case. You might have some people looking for mini beasts, you might have others up a tree, others are cooking stuff around the fire, other people are making music, building a tree house, whatever is happening is happening. However, because not everybody is comfortable to play initially, or perhaps they don't know how to play, you can't start there. You can't rock up with a group of people and just go, off you go, crack on. You can't do that. It freaks people out. Or actually, the only exception to that might be young children, like Lily Rose age children, toddlers, babies. Take them out, they're fine. They know how to do Forest School, they know how to play, it's inherently within them. But as soon as you kind of hit school age, you will find individuals that will be outside of their comfort zone. And even young primary school children, you can get out there and you say you can choose, and some of them are like, well, what do you want me to do? What's the right thing to do? What does teacher want fundamentally? Because I guess that's, unfortunately, their experience of being at school, or, sometimes as well, parenting as well at home. They might be used to being told what to do. So At the beginning of a forest school process, there might be a lot more guided elements where the leaders, the assistants are perhaps steering the group more. And certainly the first few sessions, because you need to know that people know how to keep safe and within the boundaries and all that kind of stuff. So there might be a lot of more directed elements at the start. But as the weeks go on over the long-term process, then you should end up with everybody kind of doing their own thing fundamentally. So it changes over time. So the next one is also the leaders. So there is, as you know, because you're on the course, a qualification associated with forest school. So level 3 being the leadership level. So forest schools run by the level 3s. You've got level 2s as well as assistants, and there is also a level 1 qualification as an introduction to forest school too. So each leader is unique as well. You're all unique people. You'll have your own style, your own way of doing things, different preferences as to where your skill set is. So in my experience, every forest school leader will have a different way of being. So some people perhaps really heavily into like arts and crafts and stuff, and that will kind of show up in their practice in terms of what they offer the children to do, or the ideas that they share. Some people are really into their bushcraft skills, and again that kind of ripples out of their forest school practice. So people have different ways of doing things. I will say, just as a little benchmark, although everyone will have their own way of doing things, it is useful to step outside of your own comfort zone as well, because just because you have a preference about how to do things doesn't necessarily mean the learners will share that preference. And so if we're aiming to be facilitators of learning and development, we have to perhaps provide things in a way that is not our own natural style. So I'll give you an example. Right. So singing isn't my thing. Right? Singing isn't my thing. Yet you may have noticed we've done a bit of singing, yeah? I'm not overly big on singing. I don't mind it myself, singing in the shower and stuff, but singing in groups is outside of my comfort zone, yeah? But I do it on purpose because it might be other people's things, yeah? So it's like trying different things, finding out what works is a big part of being a forest school leader. And also, continually maintain your professional practice, as in we keep up to date with our CPD. We're continually learning and growing as learners ourselves as well. And there's always that moment in forest school where, the children will go, like one child will be like really into their birds or something. And you're like thinking, it's been a long time since I've looked at the birds. I'm going to have to brush up on my ornithology skills. So I'm able then to be able to facilitate for that learner. Because if I've got a weak area, I'm not going to be able to help the learners. So we'll have to learn together. So we keep up to date with things. So then the next one is growth, I call it, but it's fundamentally holistic development. So that's a topic that we will be unpicking in more depth in Module 2, actually. We'll come up in Module 2. But forest school is a very holistic approach. It's not necessarily dividing people's learning and development into neat little boxes. It's looking at the whole person and the aspects beyond perhaps just the academic aspects of a person. So, all aspects, the spiritual, the physical, the emotional, the social, all aspects are equally important when it comes to working with people at forest school. Because forest school, as I see it, is a way of kind of bringing people to their authentic selves, to help them get to know themselves, and we mean that holistically. As I mentioned earlier as well, nature connection is a very holistic experience as well, which is why building that relationship with the woodlands or the natural space is crucial to it. Because nature is the greatest teacher, like nature does the work. You get people out in nature, it'll be fine. Nature will do the work for you to a great extent. You just have to tune into it. Sometimes people need help to tune into it, but once you do that, then nature will teach them. But then it pulls out particularly these aspects of a person in terms of resilience, confidence, independence, and creative learners. So we had a discussion before break with our sticks about the importance of creativity. That's a big part of Forest School in terms of creativity, not just meaning the arts as well, just to kind of throw that out there. You could be creative. Being creative is a way of thinking. It's a way of approaching things, a way of being, creative thought. You can be creative in all aspects of yourself. It's not just necessarily being artistic. And then risk. Risk is a big part. So Forest School gives people the opportunity to take appropriate risks. Now, those risks are not just physical risks. As Simon in the video said, it's about all the risks, the social risks, the emotional risks, because it's through risk-taking that we grow and develop as a person. We have to push our edges, find our boundaries, to find out who we are and to find out what we're capable of. So risk-taking is a huge part of Forest School. And as a practitioner, our job is to kind of to keep the balance of what's appropriate and what might be too far. But we will start touching on risk tomorrow, and risk is a theme that we continue kind of looking at all through the modules. So yeah, risk. So the way I see it is that these 6 principles kind of overlap to make like a funky mandala of Forest School with some conveniently clip-arted cosmic sycamore helicopter seeds there in a groovy spiral of eternity in the centre. So that's where the Forest School happens, when all 6 of those principles overlap. So those principles, other types of outdoor learning might share some of them, but for something to be Forest School, it has to have all of them, all 6 of them.